This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Rise up! Team Press! Rise up! Team Press!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, the USA Today NFL Wire site that covers, of course, your Arizona Cardinals in the middle of our opponent preview series, as we've been doing every summer, every July/August, leading into training camp. And this show is about the Cardinals' Week 16 opponent, their last home game of the year, when they take on the Atlanta Falcons, an eight-win team from last season. To help us talk about the Falcons, because I don't cover the team, and so I can only just read things from here. Come joining me for not the first time is Matt Urben, the managing editor over at Falcons Wire. Matt, thanks for coming on, and thanks for coming back as we get to do this. Is one of my favorite times. Like, I love doing the show with my co-host, my regular co-host, but I do like the change up of to bringing in guys that, well, the colleagues. I love to get the Wire guys on because one, it talking about the other teams. We've been doing this a long time. How long have you been on Falcons Wire now?
I came on in 2017. I think I pretty much took over after the Super Bowl. So I was pretty much down period.
So you've been on almost as long as I have, because the Cards Wire started up in July 2016.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah. So I've been here the whole time. So we are long timers on the network, and that's awesome to hear. So tell us about the Falcon season last year, which, well, the Falcons were, one, they signed Kirk Cousins, and then they made the wild trade up to get Michael Penix.
Yes, they did
bench Cousins, and Penix finished as the year. And I guess you could consider last year the most Atlanta Falcons season ever, where you're like, oh, there's some promise. You think they're good, and then they end up winning 8 games, and they lost 6 of their last 8.
Totally, man. Just like a mix of like hope, incompetence that messes it up something, just like unfathomable like decisions to sign Cousins and then draft Penix. But yeah, I mean, it was quite a season. They they got off to a pretty good start. They had a rough loss opening week where Cousins didn't really look himself. He was coming off the Achilles injury from Minnesota. Yeah. And that was a talk a lot the first few weeks, is that he just didn't look right, even though he started getting it going a little bit. So he played better over the second couple of weeks, and then they got to 6-3. And that's just where the wheels fell off there. I don't know. I think it was based on, he said he got injured in week 10 against the Saints. He didn't say at the time. He said after the season was over. But he really, really fell off after that point. Like, he didn't have any arm strength. Something was just off. He was saying everything was fine. It was the coach kind of stuck with him probably a few games too long. But, I understand that. They gave the guy a 4-year contract for $180 million. You got to hope it works out a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it became pretty clear that they needed to bench him at some point. And, it's one of those situations where it looks so stupid that they got Penix, but it worked out great for them in that sense of, like, we at least have another option to take advantage of some of these other weapons they got, because they got a lot of weapons on offense.
And still, they were in the mix in the final 2 weeks of the season to make the playoffs, only to lose in overtime to the Commanders and the Panthers.
Yes. That was quite a game too, and that was Penix's first start, and he played really well in that game, man. It was really promising, even though they lost it. And that was when Jaden Daniels was kind of on a roll there. Nobody could really stop him. The end of the season, they on to the playoffs there. But that was a great game. Then they lost the final season finale against the Panthers, which was pretty embarrassing. They lost in overtime. It's probably Penix's best game. He played incredibly, but still couldn't get him the win because they couldn't stop Bryce Young. As it maybe.
Yeah, Cardinals feel that because as a team that's exactly what happened against the Panthers late last season. They lost 36-30 in overtime, and I think Bryce Young threw 2 touchdown passes, ran for another. They had no answer for him defensively.
Yeah, he really got it going there late in the season. I mean, I didn't really give up on him. I thought, I saw it in college. He had something, but yeah, he was looking rough earlier on, man. Then he was a different player last time I saw him. It was week 18. Yeah, he played all out, man. He took a big step there. That's good for them because they were probably gonna have to go in a different direction otherwise. He showed some promise there down the stretch, and he did so.
So looking at last season's, the positives and the negatives, what were the good parts of 2024 for the Falcons?
The good parts will just be offensively, Bijan Robinson took that next step. He really looks like he's going to be a superstar at running back. Same with Drake London. He really had his first 1,000-yard season. The offensive line is in really good shape other than the center position. So that was really like where they looked good last year. They got offensively, they had the pieces. I think Cousins, once he started to taper off a little bit, they obviously they weren't as efficient, but once Penix was in there, you could really see like the potential of this offense and how explosive they could be and all that. Defensively, though, that was wild season. Like it looked pretty good early on, and then their defensive line couldn't stop anybody. They couldn't, they couldn't cover anybody. They really fell apart at the end of the season there because I thought there was a lot of promise at mid-year there. Jimmy Lake, was his first time as defensive coordinator. He got fired at the end of the year, so they brought in Albrecht. But it was a lot of positives on offense and negatives on defense, I would say.
And if we look at, obviously we look at how Robinson did, rushing for nearly 1,500 yards, catching another 61 passes for 400. So he was like the all-purpose guy. And you still had Tyler Algier, who rushed for over 600. So you've got this two-headed monster of over 2,000 yards. London goes over 1,200 yards. Then you had Ray Mooney nearly gets 1,000 yards.
He even played the final game of the year, too. He could have definitely topped it, too.
And that's the Cardinals, for example, they had almost 1,200 yards from Trey McBride. They got almost 900 from Marvin Harrison Jr., but not a single other player reached 600. And you got in Atlanta, London over 1,200, Mooney 992, Rayward McLeod 686, Kyle Pitts with 602. The passing game wasn't, and there was a stretch when Kirk Cousins was, as the young people like to say, cooking. I remember I was actually driving home from Austin, Texas. It was a night game, and I was visiting my daughter, and we started watching the game. I think I left at halftime, and so I had the game on in the car. I was driving through the night, and that overtime Thursday night game. Yeah, that was a wild game.
Yeah, Cousins, he threw a record, I think, 509 all-time franchise record in yards. And that was actually the game that Matt Ryan, they retired his jersey. Or they retired, he was entering the Falcons Ring of Honor. So he was there in attendance to see his record broken for passing yards of the game. And, for probably it was like a 60-yard touchdown pass in overtime to win it. It was crazy, man. And it seemed like things were just really, really going the right direction there. And it didn't just really, really start falling off. I think, what was that? It must have been like week 8, week 9 or something. But yeah, it wasn't too long after that. I think Cousins actually took a hit in the Saints game, which he didn't talk about until the season was over. But it was like the next week or two, and he took like a real nasty shot in his arm. And after that, it's like you could just tell that he didn't have the arm strength after that. But they didn't really say he was injured. And then the following week, he was on the injury report for only one day, and then they took him off of it. And then once the year was over, he's like, "Oh yeah, I got injured in that game. It was terrible. I had to try to fight through it." And like everyone's like, "You didn't say anything about this during the year." So,
and that's always super fishy because
yes, for sure.
And by saying things like that, he puts his team at risk because with the injury reporting rules. But I guess if he wasn't losing any reps at all in practice,
right? You could say he's fine. You could look at it either way, right? But Yeah, the thing about Cousins, he's kind of had that issue of like not being able to keep his mouth shut in regards to things that he should just keep it down. Like, whether it was the tampering or it was like he came out, he was like, oh yeah, I talked to all the training staff last week and I met Kyle Pitts and talked about my number. And I was like, you have been a free agent more than anyone in NFL history, I think. Like the amount of money he's made as an unrestricted free agent, it's been insane. And like, it's like he knows all these rules, but he tends to get himself in trouble when he talks. So
except he's not getting himself in trouble. He's getting the team. Exactly. He's still getting paid.
He's getting paid no matter what. Always. He always seems to work himself out well with the money situation. He was didn't he get that fully guaranteed deal with Minnesota, like the first ever.
Yeah, he got that 3-year fully guaranteed deal in Minnesota. Worked out. Yeah, he's played the game quite well.
Really well.
Of the young players, Arnold Ebiketie, he led the team with 6 sacks. How has he developed? That's the second year in a row that he's had 6 sacks. Is he now, obviously, based on what we're going to talk about with the draft, that they don't think that that's enough, but how was he last season? It looked like the pass rush, because with the 6 sacks leading the team, that's very Cardinals-like. Last year, Zaven Collins led the team with 5. Last year, the year before that, it was Dennis Gardeck with 6. I guess when your leading sack guy has only 6 sacks, it's not that great a pass rush.
That's an interesting question, though, honestly, about Ebiketie, because he's a guy fans had a lot of hope for. He's a second-round pick. They traded up for him, I think, in the second round to get him out of Penn State. And he's never really, taken off. He tends to get sacks here and there. Like last season, during the year, I don't think people were talking about Ebiketie being great, but like he did get some sacks on the stretch. And I think he's still a promising player, but he's in the final year of his deal now. And it's kind of like they brought in the other guys. So it's like he's got to either, he's got to prove it this year or he's got to, find somewhere else to play probably. But I still think he's a talented young player. And like I was a little surprised they haven't tried to make him more of a focal point. Like they used him less than you would think last year. He wasn't even officially a starter on the depth chart, like most of the season, which is kind of interesting. But because they had Judon, they had Lorenzo Carter. And Judon was also kind of a flop. They traded for him before the season started, gave up a 3rd-round pick to the Patriots. And he was okay. He said he didn't like the way they used him here. They kind of dropped him in coverage a little more, and he's not a guy that drops in coverage. So, and truly, like the defense was kind of a mess. Like it was kind of hard enough to know what to make of it, like who to really blame, because a guy like Judon dropping in coverage, that's not his strength, and it's not his fault for dropping in coverage, or is that the defensive coordinator's fault? But overall, though, Ebiketie was like someone I have high hopes for, and I still think he could potentially be a breakout guy this year because he's kind of being overlooked in terms of that group with all the new guys they brought in. But the sacks were definitely a problem last year too, because I think it was week 10 or 11 they had gotten like 1 sack a game or maybe less than a sack a game or something. It was by far the lowest in the NFL. They actually went on a pretty good run in the second half of the year to get to 31 total sacks, which is the second to last in the NFL. But I was like, man, they only got to 31, and they really went on a kind of a run there. So that could have been a lot worse, but it's a weird year for the defense, man. Ups and downs.
For some reason, Atlanta and a pass rush has just been the biggest struggle for them to find.
I've been writing about it every year for 8 years, man. Like they had Vic Beasley. I remember trying to hype up fans up about Vic Beasley because he had that great year, and then he just never really was able to match it. Tech McKinley, he never got it going. But they signed the guy from Dan Quinn, Dante Fowler. They brought him in his last ditch effort 1 year. He did nothing. I mean, Dan Quinn again. He's doing great, but it's just like whatever. When they're in Atlanta or just whatever they're doing on defense, it just seems like they can't find that like way to get people rushers free. But what they did find, one guy I think was probably underrated was inside linebacker Caden Ellis, who they kind of use in a multiple front type look, and he'll blitz from here and there, and he's really like a do-it-all linebacker. And I wonder if they're going to use the rookie Jalen Walker in a similar type role, because he's, Jalen Walker is an off-ball linebacker that they play sometimes on the edge as well. So I feel like they kind of got a lot more versatile weapons they're going to try to use this year and try to mix things up and get that pass rush going, hopefully.
Coming on next on the Rise of Sierra podcast, SR Cardinals talk on the web. Let's move on to the offseason, talk about what they did in free agency, who they lost, who they got, and the NFL draft. That's coming on next on Rise of Sierra.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
We're back on the Reds This Year podcast. It's our Cardinals Talk. And we're talking about the Atlanta Falcons, the Cardinals Week 16 opponent, with Matt Urben, the managing editor of Falcons Wire. Let's talk about free agency. Players that they lost. Did they lose anyone of great impact?
Yeah, I think two guys that are probably going to have a big impact this year that are not here anymore. They did not re-sign Drew Dahlman, who was a guy they drafted in the 4th round and developed into a pretty good starting center. I think he's one of the top 10 rated centers in PFF last year. They couldn't re-sign him. He went to the Bears, and then they had to release Grady Jarrett as well, and he also signed with the Bears. So they took two of our best guys, and they didn't have a ton of money this year to play. So I wasn't surprised to see them release Jarrett, but fans were a little disappointed because he's been there for 10 years and kind of the franchise, the face of the defense for the past 10 years. But in terms of losses, really just those two guys, because they didn't really. I guess Rondell Moore, was a big loss too, but he didn't even play for us, as we said last year.
And then what they added in free agency, they were not major players in free agency. They added Leonard Floyd, so they're like, pass rush, let's bring in another guy.
Yep.
1 year, $10 million deal. They brought in Divine Diablo.
Yes.
Inside linebacker, 2 years, $14 million deal, so nothing crazy. Who do you believe are the most important free agent additions? Are those two guys?
I think it's going to be Floyd and let me see. I think Jordan Fuller is kind of getting overlooked a bit in the secondary. I mean, I know he's not like a superstar safety, but he knows Raheem Morris from the Rams. They won a Super Bowl together, and he was a starting safety. Jesse Bates is one of the best safeties in the NFL. I don't know if he's a great compliment to him, but I feel like Raheem Morris will at least know how to better utilize him as a kind of mix those two up a little bit. And but yeah, other than that, I mean, I think Floyd is going to be the biggest impact player out of them. I mean, I don't think he's had less than 8.5 sacks in like 4 or 5 years. So hopefully he can bring that to Atlanta, which will be better than anyone they've had in probably 4 or 5 years. So yeah, and Diablo is a guy I just wrote about him. He was kind of an unknown guy. He started like 14 games last year for the Raiders, who weren't, obviously a great team, as you would know, but the coaching staff seems to really like him a lot. In OTAs, I guess he really impressed, and they said that he could be a guy that wears like the green helmet as inside linebacker. So that was kind of a surprise because I think fans kind of thought he was just going to be a depth guy or whatever. And who else? They also got Morgan Fox, who was a former Chargers guy. I don't really know what they see him as just a depth guy or someone that can maybe start in place of Jarrett for. They're going to definitely rotate that defensive line heavily this year, but yeah, a couple guys like that, a lot of low end, bargain bin type free agents, and who else? Anyone else? They re-signed Newsel, which was he was our free agent, but yeah, he started some games last year at center in place of Dahlman. He did pretty good, so I feel like it was a pretty smart signing if they couldn't afford to bring back Dahlman. But yeah, those are the main guys there: Floyd, Diablo, Fox, and Fuller.
And then that leads us to the draft, where the Falcons wheeled and dealed again and doubled down on the pass rush. So they get Jalen Walker, the pick before the Cardinals do, which that made me sad. I thought that was going to happen because Jalen Walker, my guys were, for me, it was Michael Williams rather.
Right.
And he goes to San Francisco. Jalen Walker's on the board until the pick before the Cardinals, and he goes, and I figured that, of course, that's going to happen. But you get Jalen Walker, that's a great pick, in my opinion. And then they move back up in the first to get James Pierce, who is incredibly productive. He was a guy I would not have minded the Cardinals drafting, perhaps not at number 16. But yeah, and so they go Jalen Walker, James Pierce. What role do you think they will both play this year? Are they going to start or are they going to rotate in, since you got Leonard Floyd there and you've got a Bichetti still there? How do you view their impact in year one?
I do expect them to both play big roles this season. I don't know if either both are going to start week one. But I could see a situation where they both start. I mean, like I said earlier, like they lost Nate Landman, the inside linebacker, and they have a couple guys at that spot, but I feel like, Walker has got that skill set where he can play. He's an off-ball linebacker that played on the edge a bit too. I think like maybe they could use him off ball a bit and we'll rotate him around. I expect Floyd to start, obviously, and I do think Pierce will be out there too. I kind of think they'll get all 3 guys on the field, but yeah, it could be one of those situations where, both guys start off as backups the first couple of weeks or something. But yeah, both guys are definitely needed. Like they bring different skill sets. Walker got the all-around abilities. He can line up. He's not like a coverage guy, but he can definitely get out the passer. In the limited time he did, he was really, really good at getting out the passer. And then Pierce has got like, a full toolbox of pass rush skills. I think his role will be clearer. So I kind of see him maybe getting set a little earlier. But overall, Walker was definitely like, most talented prospect they got. And I think that he's going to have a big role this year. Just it's kind of iffy because they got Jeff Olbrich taking over at defensive coordinator, and he hasn't been totally clear about what he wants to run this year. I imagine kind of crazy varied fronts kind of thing, but so that's kind of tough to figure out until we get to training camp. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting group for sure. Hopefully it looks like they improved for sure.
Do you think that they're going to use Walker primarily as an edge guy, or do you see him being a movable piece where he plays off the ball stuff? Because that can really mess up a player. But
yeah,
are they going to be running a 3-4 scheme like they did the previous year?
They haven't fully committed, as they won't do that anymore. They don't really like to say it. Last year they did come out and say they're going to run 3-4, but this year I feel like we all are trying to think they're going to run a 3-4, which is some kind of hybrid version of it. But yeah, I do think it's like what you said. I agree. It's best for a rookie to put him in a one-set role and kind of get his feet wet and make him get him comfortable like there. But he did kind of play both spots in college, but he was not like at the edge. So I think I can kind of see him moving around a bit the rookie year as Alpers kind of figures out where everyone is best. But yeah, that's interesting. I think they do long-term want to play him as an edge exclusively, I believe. So. And
if they are playing a 3-4? Walker's a perfect fit for that, right, because of the necessity. But part of it, because the Cardinals run a 3-4 here and have for years,
right.
Like part of that is you do need your edge backers to drop sometimes, and Walker has that skill set. Like he's played off the ball, so he can move in space. He knows how to cover guys, and I think that's a really good fit. You get in round 3, Xavier Watts, safety out of Notre Dame. What does it look like he will do as a rookie in 2025?
I've been doing my starting lineup projections, and I've been leaving him out, but fans tend to really think he's going to be this guy there. I think they're just excited, but he's a really productive player. He get like a ton of interceptions. I kind of see him serving as more of like a backup to Jesse Bates that gets on the field, here and there as a rookie, and then long term probably a starter for sure. But yeah, he's a really talented guy, and even the guy that got in the 4th round, Billy Bowman, is another guy that people thought was a pretty good value pick, and he's someone that they think can battle for the nickel spot this year. They did re-sign D. Alford, who was our starting nickel last year, but he's had ups and downs, and I think Bowman has a lot of upside, so that's interesting. I don't think either guys are shoo-ins for the starting lineup this year, but I do think both will be good on the field, definitely.
And you just talked about Bowman. He's going to vie for that nickel job. And then their 7th round pick. They only had 5 picks in this draft. Jack Nelson, tackle in the 7th round. Is there any shot that he has any impact this year, or is he a typical 7th round pick where you're like day 3 offensive lineman? We'll see what he can do next year.
Yeah, I tend to think more so like that. There's no clear role with him anyway. They got 2, sturdy tackles in McGarry and Matthews. And I think, people are pretty high on him. I saw, PFF was pretty high on him, and just the fact that he's a good developmental prospect was maybe a 5th round projection kind of guy. So he should be a guy that can sit for a year or two, and maybe he has something to play or not. But I expect him to make the roster, and just to be a developmental guy for now.
Coming up next on the Rest of Sierra podcast, Best Our Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's move on and talk about their upcoming 2025 season. That's coming up next on the Rest of Sierra.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to TalkSpace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at TalkSpace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at TalkSpace.com.
We're back on the Rise of Secret podcast, best our Cardinals talk on the web as we now move on to the 2025, the future segment, as we talk to Matt Urben from Falcons Wire as we look at the Cardinals' Week 16 opponent, the Atlanta Falcons. What are the expectations? What are reasonable expectations for this 2025 Falcons team? Are they, after winning 8 wins last year, is the hope and expectation to be a playoff team / compete for the division in the NFC South?
Yeah, 100%. I think with the move to trade up for James Pierce, it has to be what they expect because, if you look at their past 3 years before Raheem Morris got here, it was 3 straight 7-9 years with Arthur Smith. Finally, they got the 8th win this year. And, with Penix and all the investments they made on the defensive line, I just feel like it might, it's not going to be easy for them to win the division, but I do think that's the expectation. I think Alfonso's job could be on the line, so I feel like they're definitely making a push to go win it this year. So that might be also why they haven't been so willing to just give up Kirk Cousins. Not that anyone wants him, but if Penix is a first year starter, a guy like Cousins wouldn't be bad for a backup. It'd be nice if we did make $27 million and was making $40 million cap hit. But if they're not, I don't think they should just give him away because you got a guy like Penix who does have a bit of an injury history in college, and it's like you don't want to go to Easton Stick if the season's on the line.
As a guy who covered a team that had to turn to Ryan Lindley in the playoffs.
Oh, Lindley, man, I remember him. That was rough,
I could 100% see a scenario where Penix struggles, Penix gets hurt, and Cousins comes in and plays really well. Like he's that type of quarterback. But right. I will say this: the schedule makers gave the Falcons no favors.
Yeah, they got a rough opening schedule, man. I know
they have the earliest possible bye in week 5. Exactly. And they start Buccaneers, Vikings, Panthers, Commanders, Bills, 49ers. Those are their first 6 games. And my guess is probably only the Panthers game. And even that, the Panthers being on the road, maybe they're not even favored in that game currently.
No, probably not. I mean, the Panthers took us out last year. I mean, that opening stretch is brutal. I mean, if they can get 3 wins out of there, I think they got to be happy with that to get to the bye week. Because, 49ers, I think the 49ers on the road in national TV, and then Josh Allen in a national game, that's a no-chance game, I feel like. And then Buccaneers, the thing, though, is the Buccaneers, we kind of had their number the past year. Like, they took them both times. And I think, they were a better team, but we just seemed to match up well against them. But so that's going to come down to it. I think if they can get off to a win against the Buccaneers, they got a real good chance to make the playoffs because overall the schedule is not too bad if you go through it. It's all up front, and then down the stretch they can definitely.
Well, then down the stretch you've got the NFC. You've already played the 49ers, but 3 of your final 5 games
the Rams,
are against the NFC West. You got Seahawks, Cardinals, and Rams. I'm not saying like none of those teams. The Rams were the division winner last year. They went to the playoffs. They won a playoff game, but this entire division, the NFC West, is tough. And so it'll be interesting. And then you've got your Thursday night game in Tampa Bay in December. And if honestly, you end the season at home against the Saints. So where if you need a win to get in, that feels good,
right?
Because the Saints are going to be a dumpster fire this year. And if they're anything other than a dumpster fire, what in the world is happening in the NFL?
NFL's rigged, if not. It's insane, truly. Because I don't know. I still don't get why they passed on Shedeur completely. I understand maybe the first round, but
everyone passed on Shedeur at least 4 times.
That's insane. Even the Steelers, man, I was kind of like, why wouldn't they just take a flyer? I get it.
Because they knew Aaron Rodgers was coming. Yeah. And we'll see. We'll see with Shedeur. But this is the quarterback room. You've got Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, and Jake Haener. So you've got an old rookie who's not a first-round pick.
Right.
And you've got 2 guys that combined for 0-7 as a starter last year.
Yeah. It's just going to be rough for them. I think this really should be the year we could, they should fall down very much to the bottom of the division. I think the Panthers would.
Well, I talked to John Sigler. So here's the conspiracy. Their offensive coordinator is the father of Garrett Nussmeier at LSU.
Really?
Yeah.
did not know that.
Dude,
That is crazy.
Conspiracy
Wow.
that. So like you've got, of course you've got the Manning connection, but Archman is not going to go to the Saints.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
No, he'll push.
That won't happen.
Right.
But like you've got a bad Saints team. Their offensive coordinator is the father of a top prospect, an expected top quarterback prospect who is there in Louisiana at LSU.
It's crazy.
Like, put the tinfoil hats on, guys, because
yes, I don't think
we're believing all the conspiracies.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to rush to win this year that much. Doesn't seem like it. You know, it's funny because I think Kellen Moore, I actually think he's a good hire. I followed him for a minute because I'm a Lions fan growing up, and he was the backup to Stafford for a few years, and then he got into coaching gradually. But yeah, he's actually went back and watched he was on the Gruden QB camp way back in the day, if you remember those shows.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. He was kind of an undersized guy, but yeah, they're gonna be interesting. But yeah, for the Falcons, though, I mean, I'm projecting them to go. I think they can get to, I'll say 10 wins. I think they can get there. It's gonna be that first stretch is gonna be tough. They can get out of there without being like 1-5. I think they'll have a pretty good chance to get going because last year they were up and down. And it doesn't seem like they started out 0-1 and then got to 6-3 and then they lost 4 straight games. And then they bounced back and it's like, I think maybe having Penix in there from the start and not being like, I think the Cousins thing was such a distraction even before he even played a game. It was like, you got Penix on the bench. People are kind of excited about a first round rookie. And also he wasn't like a young rookie. He was 24 years old as a rookie. So fans were kind of like, he's ready to play. Like, if Cousins struggles, let's put him in. But I think they were a little slow to take him out. And then I think this year, maybe going in with a full off season, I just talked to him. He seemed like he was pretty confident about, going into the season as a starter versus the weird uncertainty, whatever last year was. And then they told him to be on standby for a few weeks when Cousins was kind of struggling. And so I think now he's got a lot of time to work with the team in the offseason and get it going. And I think that should make a difference. But yeah, it's going to be tough. I think ultimately it'll come down to their defense, though. I think the offense should be pretty good this year, no matter what. I think it should be top 10 roughly. But yeah, some of those teams are playing, like the Seahawks, for example. I've been covering them for SI, and they're interesting. I don't really know what to make of them. Their defense seems like it's going to be really good. I'm not sure what to make of Darnold. I think he's a pretty talented quarterback, but
guess what? I think you're the same boat. Literally everyone is like, what? They got rid of Geno. Say, okay, you get rid of Geno. He's old, but then old. Like, did you get better? Did you get? All you did was get younger. All you did was get younger because it's like Sam Darnold is Sam Darnold.
Yeah, like the overall body work tells you like, he's a guy that can get hot, but like, you're not got a QB guru over there whispering to me. I mean, I guess, they got Clint Kubiak. He's supposed to be pretty good, but I just mean like if you go into a new situation after you finally got it going, like, how long it would take to get that spot. Like finally you got your chance, you crushed it, you threw 35 touchdowns. I mean, like, I don't know he's going to be able to duplicate that. And the pressure of like, they drafted Jalen Milroe over there. So it's going to be the same situation. Like if he struggles at all, they're going to be like, let's put this guy in. I'm already hearing like, should he start? Like they gave him $100 million and they're already not sure if you're going to play him, but I do think maybe he'll do okay. Their offensive line isn't that great, and he's not really going to pressure, so that's interesting too.
And they traded away DK Metcalf. And
exactly. For whatever reason, they did that just so they could bring Cooper Kupp, which I mean, I love Cooper, but I don't. At this time, I mean, like I watched the final games of the year for them, and maybe he was hurt, but he didn't look the same without the stretch last season. I don't know what was going on with him.
No, it's going to be interesting. So, best case, worst case, you see them kind of being a 10-win team. 10 wins in the NFC South is to compete for the division, maybe playoffs, maybe division champ.
Yeah, right now, what is the right spot? Like maybe fight for the division. I'd say maybe it'll come down to a game or two within the division. Then they should have a real chance at that wild card, especially with the extra seed now. But I don't know. It's gonna be interesting, man, because it's such a tough conference overall. Like with the NFC North being as stacked as it is, and I don't know how many wild card spots can be available, but I do think though, as long as they don't just go, fall off a cliff on defense, if they can at least hold together as Albridge kind of figures out what's going on, where to put players at and stuff, I think there's a good chance they can get to at least, they should at least be at 500. I think, 9, I guess is maybe 500 or whatever. But yeah, 9-10 wins. I would be surprised if they can't get to 9-10 wins. Beyond that, I don't know. I mean, do they have 13-win potential? I'm not sure with the schedule they have. I do think that in general, like Raheem Morris seems to give them he's kind of uplifted that locker room a bit because, the players, Arthur Smith kind of had that more Belichick kind of disciplinarian thing to him, and I think players didn't really respond to that well. Raheem Morris got a lot of energy. He gets guys fired up. He's really direct. I think that's a good thing for players, and they all seem to really respond to that. So, I mean, I don't know if it's going to keep them from making the playoffs this year, but I think they got a good shot. As good a shot as they've had since I've covered the team, I'll say.
And with that, we will wrap up this edition of the Rise of Sea Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. A big thanks to Matt Urben. You can find his stuff over at the Falcons Wire. Go to falconswire.com. It's one of our sister sites if you're looking to check in on the Cardinals opponents. Matt, are you also on social media at all?
Oh, yeah, I'm on Twitter at Matt Urben. I don't do much on there, but if you want to follow me, go give it a shot.
That's fine. Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having
whether
me,
this is, and that'll wrap up this show. We'll be back again soon. Whether it's going to be, if we're doing this, it'll either be another opponent preview show, or it will be Seth and I coming back to talk about training camp. Thanks for listening. As always, we'll be back again soon.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up Sea Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red Sea Red, and of course, Rise Up Sea Red.